Welcome to The Baseline. I'm Nick McCarville, and at the Australian Open this year, we are crunching the numbers like never before. We're using something we're calling GIG, the Game Insight Group, and to help explain what that is, I'm joined by Dr. Machar Reid. Now, Doctor, tell me what GIG is so all those fans out there can understand too.
Yeah, look, Nick, quite simply, a couple of years ago, ESPN rated tennis, our sport, the second worst among all professional sports in terms of its use of data and statistics to tell stories for the fans, coaches and players.
That's not where we want to rank in that whatsoever, right?
Absolutely not. So we're in the business of reversing that.
Very good. Well, let's jump right into it. Today we're going to talk about Andy Murray, the top seed, the world #1. He won in 3 sets against Illya Marchenko, but let's break down, as we do in GIG fashion, and talk about the clutch points. What was he doing on serve versus return?
Yeah, look, it really was. The storyline today was really about serve and return and Andy's performance on both. So over the last 3 years, Andy's been the 23rd best player at the Australian Open in terms of performing really well in those clutch moments on serve.
Wow.
Not that good.
No.
For someone of his level.
Right.
On return, however, he's rated second best. And we essentially saw that play out today. So he hit less than 50% of first serves in, not a particularly strong position to start with. He won 83% of those, but on the biggest moments of the match, he only won 65%.
Even when the first serve goes in. So per se, if we're looking at 15 love or 30-15, he's winning those points when he gets the first serve in, but on a clutch point, not as much.
Less so, and that's what we've seen play out over the last few years with Andy. As it relates to the return, the opposite tends to happen, and that's certainly what played out today, in particular moments of that first set and equally the second, when things got tight.
Able to lean on the return like he wanted to.
Yeah, he outperformed. He ensured he got balls back into play, forced Marchenko to win the point.
Got it, absolutely. So if we look at the serve in particular, Marca, what was he doing with that service motion that wasn't allowing him in particular to win those clutch points?
Look, overall, Andy's setup doesn't really lend itself to a serve that's going to produce a high percentage of first serves, nor necessarily produce consistently high speeds.
Okay.
And that's because he really rotates quite strongly and in a really pronounced fashion as compared to a lot of other players. At the same time, he extends. What that then means, he ends up being quite front on at impact, parallel with the net, if you like. So that tends to mean that he's going to favour a wide serve, which he certainly did today. It's going to mean that you have less margin over the net as a result of reduced impact point or height. And then equally, and thirdly, less able to consistently serve at high speeds.
Absolutely. So then when we look at that, bringing that all together, the work rate, where does it rank as far as what he's had to do the last couple of years here at the Australian Open, and especially a 3-set win in the first round, but how much did he have to work for that win?
What we've seen play out over the last 2 Australian Opens, 15 and 16, on the road to the final, Andy's worked 39% more than Novak in 2015.
Wow.
And 6.5% more than Novak in 2016.
Okay, and then what's that meant? Well, we know the results, but what's that meant for him work rate-wise in the finals against Novak?
Well, typically, if Andy's going to win, he's going to outwork an opponent.
Right.
He hasn't been able to do that, certainly not to the same extent in those finals against Novak. So whether or not the accumulation of the work beforehand, that 39% additional work or the 6.5% additional work, has played a role in meaning that Andy's not able to lift his rating to the same extent against Novak.
Sure.
We don't know.
So, Marca, if we break all of that down, looking at his work rates the last couple of years, how does this first round potentially play out for the rest of his Australian Open?
Well, again, if we think about it in terms of work rate, he's gone out there today perhaps anticipating a slightly easier match than he had. So he's had to work that little bit harder. So again, we place that in the context of the last 2 Australian Opens, 15 and 16. Well, needless to say that he's perhaps going to enter round 2 not as fresh as he may have otherwise been.
Very interesting stuff there. We're obviously going to see how that plays out and much more right here on The Baseline each night of the Australian Open from our Game Insight group. Thank you so much, Dr. Reid,
Pleasure.
And we'll talk to you guys soon.